Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to the August 2024 edition of Mayor's Monthly Video. I just wanted to share with you today is August the 8th, and today's the first day of school in Columbiana. And on my way into City Hall this morning, got behind school traffic and school buses. And I just wanted to share with you to please be careful. Our children are probably the most precious thing that we have. So when you're traveling around the high school and the elementary school, as well as on Highway 70 across from the Career Technical Education Center, or in front of the Career Technical Education Center, and out on Joinertown Road at the middle school and Highway 25 accessing the middle school. Please be very, very careful, slow down, watch for kids, and let's try to be safe and make sure we have a safe and happy school year coming up. Okay, today I don't have a bunch of charts and graphs for you. I just want to talk to you about some things. I want to share some good news, some positive things have been happening in Columbiana. I want to share a little bit with you about the progress that we're making. We're sort of knee deep in the fiscal year 2025 budgeting process, kind of share some the things about what's going on there. And then some not so good news. I want to share that with you and what impact it might have on you in the city of Columbiana. And then we'll wrap this thing up. So, the good news, start with the good news. The last time I think I spoke to you, I mentioned some of the grants that the city had gotten, the Rebuild Alabama grant, the SAFER grants for the fire departments for recruiting and retaining volunteer firefighters and things. Well, since then, we received another FEMA grant called the Assistance for Firefighters Grant, AFG. And that was a collaborative grant application between Columbiana, Wilsonville, and the unincorporated community, the Kingdom Volunteer Fire Department. All three volunteer fire departments collaborated on this. Columbiana was the lead agency. We submitted our application. And the good news is we were awarded a $784,000 grant for the purpose of purchasing breathing apparatus or air packs for our volunteer firefighters. Those things are very expensive, about $10,000 a piece. The proposal was for Columbiana, and the grant was for Columbiana to get 40 new air packs. Wilsonville and Kingdom Volunteer Fire Departments to each get 22 new air packs. Columbiana is the lead agency, so we'll receive the funding. We'll purchase all the air packs for all of the fire departments, and we'll distribute them out to the other fire departments and deal with the grant funding. There's a 5% match that's required by each one, so it's a very small amount, but it's really great news. Those things have a shelf life. They can be re-inspected occasionally and their shelf life renewed, but we'd sort of, all three fire departments had kind of gotten to end of life on these air packs. And certainly we want to have those things. So if our firefighters need to, God forbid, enter a burning building or a smoke-filled building to rescue somebody or to fight a fire or even rescue a pet, we want to make sure that they're well protected, and this grant's going to allow us to do that. So that's good news, and we really appreciate our volunteer fire departments. It's sort of an update on the SAFER grant, the Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response, where it's focused on us trying to hire or bring on board an additional 20 volunteer firefighters. We've been advertising for a recruiting and retention coordinator. That is the largest amount of the grant funding is committed to that. And we've received about 14 resumes and applications. So we're going to start sifting through those, narrow it down, and start the interview process in the next couple of weeks. So we'll be closing out those application process by the end of this week. Okay, so now we're knee-deep in the middle of the budgeting process for fiscal year 25. It's very detailed. We go through every line item and every account, every department that we have in the city of Columbiana. And we start the process by me sending a letter to the departments and the city council in June. Call it the budget call, and we ask them to start reviewing their current year budgets, thinking about their next year budgets, and then They began submitting to me their drafts, budget requests for fiscal year 25 in July, and now we've been going through with each department and reviewing those. We'll have that review process completed with City Council by the end of this month, and then we will adopt the budget at a City Council meeting in September, and the fiscal year starts on the 1st of October. It's been going very well. So it's not finalized, the budget, but so far we've got a $1.5 million surplus in our proposed budget for the general fund. The Government Finance Officers Association recommends that cities have a minimum of 2 months of general fund expenses as a surplus, and that $1.5 million surplus that we have in the general fund is about 2.2 months of general fund expenses. So we're looking good as far as that's concerned. Our goal is to eventually be able to get up, hopefully, to a surplus of a general fund surplus of around 3 months. Now, there are other funds, sewer fund, court fund, cemetery fund, gas taxes, capital improvement funds, all kinds of things where we get money from various tax resources or allocations from taxes from the state of Alabama. And those are separate from the general fund. So we budget those funds and how they're going to be expended as well. They're restricted as to what we can spend them on. Gas taxes, for example, are for road and street improvements only. So we add that to the general fund, and we have a total surplus for the city of all of our funds, general fund and our proprietary funds, as we call them, of about $1.8 million. Now, the state of Alabama, there's a statutory requirement where we're not allowed to budget, we're not supposed to budget more than 90%. We shouldn't budget or appropriate funds that exceed more than 90% of the funds that we have available. So we're sitting right now at just a little less than 88%, so I think we're in good shape as far as that's concerned. One thing that's in this budget, which I think is good news for everyone, is we've got nearly $1 million in this budget for street paving projects in fiscal year 25 in Columbiana. Now, some of that, almost half of it, as a matter of fact, is a carryover from this fiscal year 2024, because we had applied for a Rebuild Alabama grant, which we did receive. We received about $311,000 on the Rebuild Alabama grant. But we can't use that money if we've already done the work. So we delayed our starting our street paving projects. We got the grant in July, and now we're just a couple of months away from the end of the fiscal year. So, and now just a month away from the end of the fiscal year. So we're just rolling that over into fiscal year 25 plus additional street paving projects planned for 25. So a lot of work going on as far as street paving projects in fiscal year 25, and that will be good for the city as well. So now let me kind of share with you what's maybe the bad news. Last year in our sanitation department for our garbage pickup, the county landfill increased its dump fees by about 42%. The garbage that we collect, the refuse that we collect, we take it to the county landfill, and they charge us for disposing of that. Now, they have to do that. Obviously, there's all kinds of expense associated with disposal of that garbage and environmental regulations and requirements. And they had not increased their fees for quite a long time. But we didn't pass that along. We charge $18.50 a month for residential garbage pickup. And if you compare that with other cities, we're very low, maybe even the lowest of all the cities and municipalities in Shelby County. For example, if you live in Chelsea, not picking on Chelsea, they use a commercial garbage service. It's not a city-provided service, and they pay about in the neighborhood of $35 a month for their garbage pickup. And we in Columbiana pay about $18.50. Now, the problem is with the dump fees going up, we're running a deficit of between $400,000 and $500,000 a year, and we're not going to be able to continue that. So we are going to have to plan for, I am going to request in the budget at the request of the sanitation department. I'm going to ask the city council for a modest increase in our garbage pickup fees from $18.50 to $20 a month. We will not implement that on October the 1st. I want to get the word out to all of our customers and let them know what our plans are, and we'll implement that increase if it's approved by the city council on January the 1st. So wanted to share that with you. It's a necessity. Proprietary funds like the sanitation department are supposed to be funded by their user fees, and the city's been subsidizing that for years. And because of and we will still be subsidizing it when we increase our collection fee, but we because of the increase in dump fees, we're going to have to raise that up. Now, the worst news has to do with our sewer treatment plant. In 2023, we discovered that we had a leak in one of the sewer treatment ponds, and that was basically taking sewage that was being treated there, and it was potentially leaking out into the creeks and the rivers and streams, and so we had to fix that. And so we came up with a plan for a temporary fix and went to ADEM and proposed a solution. We had an engineer that we hired. He did an analysis, came up with a proposal, says, I think we can get this done for about $5.5 million. We went to the Alabama Department of Environmental Management, ADEM, which is the EPA representative in the state of Alabama, and we asked for a grant from ADEM, and we did receive that, and that grant was for about half of that $5.5 million, about just under $2.8 million, and then the other half of it is being funded by a very low interest rate, 1.99% loan from the state revolving fund for 20 years. That was about the other half, about $2.8 million as well. So once we got all that put together, we created a spec package, and we submitted it out for bids. And the bid came in at a whopping $18 million, where we had planned $5.5 million. And we nearly choked on that. Unfortunately, we only had one responsive bidder. So we sat down and we began negotiations with that bidder to bring the price down. We began talking to ADEM to see if it's a possibility to either get more grant funding or more SRF loan, or a combination of the two. And we changed the specifications to try to make it a little bit more cost effective, but we were only able to get it down to around $15 million. So from $5.5 to $15 million is where we are. And City of Columbiana doesn't have that kind of money, so we have to figure out how are we going to pay for that. We weren't able to get additional grant funding, so we still have just under $2.8 million in grant funding, and we're going to have to borrow now about $12.2 million from the state revolving fund. The additional money that we're going to borrow will be more than the 1.99%, but it's still very inexpensive at about 2.2%. Now, once again, the sewer department is funded primarily by user fees. What we pay on our water bill, there's a sewer fee attached to that. And we are going to probably have to increase our sewer fee a modest amount to cover the loan that we will have to service to complete the overhaul of the sewage treatment plant. It's something that we have to do for environmental reasons. We don't really have a choice. If we didn't have the money, the state of Alabama would come in and take over the sewer, and I can assure you they would pass that cost on to the users, and it would probably be a heck of a lot more than what we're going to do. So the debt service that we have for the City of Columbiana, we pay every year about $800,000 a year in principal and interest to pay down the debt. Most of that debt, we have about $14 million in debt. About 11 of it is debt associated with the Old Mill Square development, and about $3 million in just general obligation debt. The debt service for that's about just under $800,000 a year. The And those bonds, that debt was funded by various bonds, revenue bonds as well as general obligation bonds, are for a term of 30 years. Okay, and the state revolving fund loan is a maximum of 20 years. So even though it's less money, the debt service is going to be somewhere between, most likely, around $750,000. So essentially, the sewage treatment plant is doubling the city's debt. Now, the good news is, if it's paid for by user fees, then it doesn't count against the city's debt limit. There's a statutory debt limit, 20 under Section 225 of the Constitution, 20% of the net assessed value of property in the city of Columbiana. And then for economic development purposes, under Amendment 772 to the Constitution, 50% of the net assessed value of property in Columbiana. So we have the ability, even if we incur an additional $12.2 million in debt, the city statutorily can borrow another $20 million if it needs to above that. That would not be wise. In fact, the $12 million that we're having to borrow is more than I would certainly like for us to do, but it's a necessity. We're going to have to do it. And we'll sort out what increases we'll have to make in the sewer fees, and we haven't increased that in quite some time. And again, we will do that so it has the least amount of pain that we can inflict on our folks, because that's something that we don't want to do. But obviously, we've got to take care of that problem. So that is the bad news. But there's still a lot more good things going on in Columbiana. So like I said, I think the budget process is good. And what I wanted to do is wrap up and finish by letting you guys know that 2026 marks the 200th anniversary of Columbiana being the county seat of Shelby County, Alabama. So we're trying to get ahead of things and hopefully plan some big celebrations to recognize that 200th anniversary, perhaps some collaboration with the county, maybe some big deal, a little bit more of a impressive celebration at Liberty Day in 2026. But we're going to sort all that out, working with the county and really celebrate our history as being the Shelby County seat for the last 200 years. So be looking to see what the plans are for that. We've got, a year and a half or so to work on that, but we need to do that if we want to make it a good show. So that's about all the news that I have for August. So again, remind everybody, have a safe school year. Be careful. Watch out for the kids. And I'll see you in September.